Hello, my name is Sue Farrell Stock, and I'm Chief Operating Officer of Association Management Center. I'm here today with Debbie Trueblood, our Senior Consultant from the AMC Consulting Services team. And we're going to talk about the topic that is important to associations, strategic planning. And so, Debbie, thanks for joining us today. Considering the uncertainty and change of the past few years and the immense amount of learning that we've all experienced, is strategic planning still relevant in the way that it was in the past?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sue, and wonderful to be with you today. Definitely, we've seen so many different changes in associations in these last few years during the pandemic era. But it is because of the rapid pace of change in our world right now that we absolutely need strategic plans, more so than really ever before. And so we're seeing all sorts of different trends happening in the association community and therefore in strategic plans. So we're seeing things like workforce development and inclusion and changing revenue models, succession planning, changes in governance structure, as well as just a sharp increase in competitive issues within the association environment. So it's very important that we plan for these trends.
And how many of these trends are visible as a result of the pandemic? So the learning from the pandemic and how it's influenced workforce and generational trends in terms of how folks interact with their associations. How much has that been an impact as a result of the new learning from the pandemic?
Absolutely. I would say all of these changes are visible generally across the association community, but they're not necessarily all true for all associations. So for some associations, we're seeing issues like workforce shortage or workforce development more impacting the association staff than the members. And in some cases, it's the opposite. So we're definitely seeing a wide variety of trends, but they are showing up differently for different associations.
Interesting. And so, what are the unique differences that AMC Consulting is providing, perhaps differently, in the strategic planning work that you're doing with boards?
So definitely for AMC Consulting, what we're really trying to do with strategic planning is to really be mindful of some of these trends in the association community and bring the expertise that we have working with a wide variety of associations to really bring that thought leadership and that support to these association leaders. In general, in this era, what we're seeing, I would say the biggest trend is this wedge between association have and have nots is deeper and wider than ever. And by have and have nots, of course, I mean associations with resources and with resource challenged associations. And while that's always been true, what we're seeing now in this space is that for those association haves, those who have grown, and we've worked with clients who have doubled in size in the last 5 years during the COVID era, as well as those who are smaller than they were in 2017, 2018, and really trying to regrow. And so what we're trying to do is really meet these associations where they're at and really help them go to the next step. And for some associations, those who have the resources, we're working with them to say, how can you put these resources to good use and really make a huge difference in the world? And for those associations who are really struggling today, for them, we might be saying, instead of some big picture trend-based work, for you, let's look at financial sustainability. Let's look at how do we adjust the board to be more nimble in this time. So there's all sorts of different approaches, but for us, we really focus in on customizing, meeting the association where they're at, learning about them so that we can really make sure that what we bring to the table is most useful for them so they can really be effective.
That's wonderful. And you think about the pivot that is needed in this post-pandemic era that we're in, and the pivot around how do we make decisions differently? How do we think about the future differently? Meeting them where they are feels like a very compelling approach. Now, the reality is you bring both subject matter expertise, some trend analysis, as well as some unique and objective insights. Talk a little bit about why it could be beneficial for associations to consider a consultant to guide this process with board leaders.
Absolutely. So before I became an association consultant, I was an association executive director for many years. And so in that role, I know exactly what it's like to go through a strategic plan from the inside. And I've had the opportunity to experience strategic planning with a consultant, which always worked best for me, versus those opportunities where they might say, have the executive director do it. And what happens in that case is that person then is pulled from the opportunity to be a thought leader in the plan to instead being a facilitator. So you're actually using the person who can maybe best support you, who knows you best, and pulling their voice out of the mix. So an outside consultant can be really helpful there. I've also seen associations who have used volunteer-driven plans. And in that case, what tends to happen is they're sort of quickly derailed, right? So, a volunteer is going to get to it when they get to it, as opposed to a consultant who has a timeline and an expectation, as just a little bit more accountability. So certainly that's a key difference. But, in terms of our specific expertise, it's in working with all of these different associations that, again, we can quickly take something that is a lesson learned, a case study from another association, and apply it across the board. So we've seen things like how do we incorporate DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion across all the domains for an association. We've seen how do we bring in greater innovation. We've seen how do we manage that competitive issue pushing so many of the associations in our space. And so we can take those learnings and apply it and hopefully support an association with all of this added knowledge.
Wonderful. Are there added features or support models that the consulting team offers, say post strategic plan? Are there opportunities to engage with the organization further in the form of implementing the operational plan that guides and informs the strategy work, as well as some of the outcomes and measurements that they're seeking to achieve?
Absolutely. So, it is an opportunity that the different associations we work with can kind of pick and choose how they want to work with us once their plan is written. For most of our strategic planning clients, though, what they select is that we will present the strategic plan to the board, and then we'll work with the staff to really create an implementation or work plan or operational plan, whatever you want to call it, to really add in all of those true tactics and measurements that are part of that staff plan. And then from there, we typically meet with our strategic planning association clients a few times over that first year that they're implementing that plan so that we can brainstorm with them. So if they come up to any barriers or any challenges in really implementing that plan, we're there to support them and help them through that.
That's wonderful. Any final thoughts around what associations should consider in seeking an outside consultant for strategic planning?
Absolutely. So for me, I think it's about, and again, I've hired strategic planners in the past, so I know what I would look for in their shoes. I look for someone who will take the time to get to know you and to better understand the context of your plan. I don't want to work with a consultant who just walks in the day of the retreat and kind of, gives to you the same plan they would give anyone else. So I want to see a consultant who really learns about you. I want a consultant, or I would recommend a consultant who really customizes their approach. Again, in this moment in our society and the association community, all associations are not the same. Some, again, have great levels of resource and opportunity, and they're truly leaders in their field, and others are struggling to get by. So it doesn't make sense for a consultant to approach these different types of situations with the same plan. I would also look for consultants who really want to hear from different input, different stakeholders in your association. For me, I am also a DEI consultant. So I like to incorporate aspects of DEI into strategic planning, as well as aspects of governance and leadership into strategic planning. So in that regard, I want to make sure that if I were picking a consultant, that it's someone who can incorporate these pieces of diversity of thought, diversity of perspective into the plan, asking the executive director, who are the outlying voices that maybe we didn't hear clearly in a survey that we should sit down and meet with and hear from. I also look, most importantly, when I was looking for a consultant, I look for someone who I can really trust and feel comfortable with. Because sometimes in strategic planning, as we're digging into our research and getting to know an association, we might find something that is a key finding that's very uncomfortable. That might be a part of your reputation in the field. It might be a part of your history, might be the way people see someone in the boardroom. All sorts of different uncomfortable things happen. And so it's important that we can have a relationship between the consultant and the CEO where we can sit down and really try to work through some of those challenges, because I just don't think it's ethical if I, as your consultant, work with you for months and then don't address the key finding because maybe it's too uncomfortable. If I don't address it, then I'm not really setting you up for success. So we have to sit down and work that through. And I would want you to feel safe and comfortable with me and trust me to be able to walk you through that situation.
Outstanding. Thank you. Any final thoughts, any words of wisdom to share regarding strategic planning?
Absolutely. So, for me, when I'm working with associations, I will often say to boards, when you as an association were founded, probably years ago, more often than not, what I hear is you were founded with a great idea on the back of a napkin, maybe in a bar. We hear that a lot. And I encourage boards to remember that when those founders had that first great idea about you, they likely did not say, wouldn't it be great if we got together, right? Instead, what they probably were thinking when you were founded was, imagine what we can do if we get together. And so it's that piece that I think too many strategic plans are missing. It's that imagine what we can do. It's about pushing an association a little bit further than they're used to, encouraging some brave, ethical, courageous leadership, and incorporating ideas of innovation, and really encouraging you to say, to be a great and important association, your real job is not just to serve the members. Your real job is to make a difference in the world. And so when we go back to imagine what we can do if we got together, that's likely to take you to your best strategic plan that you can imagine.
Inspiring words. Thank you so much to Debbie Trueblood today and for your time in sharing insights about strategic planning for associations.